Not every video game is going to be a gold star winner. Frustrating level designs, muddled characterizations, plot holes you can drive a cruise ship through, and broken controls can establish the thin line between a good game, a presentable game, and just hot garbage that wouldn't even make a decent coaster. However, every now and then in a particularly gruesome title, there is one saving grace, one sole level that can make something so horrendously painful relatively tolerable. So if you're feeling brave enough, join me in counting down the top 10 good levels in bad games. Yeah, you might have to play everything else, but these are the levels that just might entice you to keep going. At least you have something to look forward to. Many of you will recall me calling this one of the biggest scams in gaming history. Well, I'm still holding on to that because this overhyped game promised so much. Massive multiplayer gaming, amazing space combat, and exploring uncharted territories in an ever-expanding universe.
And what did we get instead?
We just paid $1 billion for a snot rag?
The game simultaneously cut corners and bit off way more than it could chew, delivering nothing but a bland, glitchy version of Minecraft that leaves you alone in a great big universe of lies.
No, Mr. Popo does not lie.
That being said, the very start of the game is relatively not bad. You find yourself dropped off on an unknown planet and you're directed to gather materials to repair your ship while also exploring this strange new world. You get to see the more unique views of the planet, including some freaky critters if you're lucky to spot any, and maybe explore ancient ruins that teach you a little more about the world's native language. That alone sounds perfectly fine, if you don't take into account what might have been. The reason that this is at number 10, aside from the obvious issues, is that the planet you start out on is on a roulette system. You never know where you're gonna start out. I've seen and heard stories of players who start the game on planets so inhospitable and dangerous that they've had to start over on brand new worlds. While No Man's Sky Next fixed some of the issues, the damage from its skeezy upbringing is done at this point. But it at least upgraded the game from being an annoying slog to boringly average. Ah, good old Banjo-Kazooie. It's scientifically impossible to have an N64 without knowing about these two. When another game was announced and the teaser trailer premiered, it looked like we were finally getting pulled back into the swing of things. More snarky Kazooie humor, more bumbling Banjo, more wondering how Grunty was gonna die this time, with classical satire to boot.
What we got was spawned from a pit of lies. A fat bear and his flamboyant turkey riding around in a Walmart shopping cart.
Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts was incredibly disappointing to most die-hard Banjo-Kazooie fans, partially because the gameplay was so different. What with your own Build-A-Bear carrier, wonky and finicky physics, and no actual fighting as commanded by the game's Deus Ex Machina.
I see what you did there, Rare. Stop it!
But fans rebelled against the majority of the game in part because the first level was actually pretty fun. Nutty Acres is a lush landscape full of the classic Banjo-Kazooie platforming, jiggy hunting, and puzzle solving, and it introduces the concept of building different vehicles to suit different needs in an okay fashion. Sure, you have to ride around like a 4-year-old on an ATV he got for Christmas some of the time, but many of the challenges make that optional. And if you do decide to proceed further in the game, it is easily the most fun world to return to in order to test out new machines you build. With its open terrain and clear sky, it's great for just playing around in. As the first world, it gives the impression that the rest of the game is going to be the normal Banjo-Kazooie fare with a little bit of minecart thrown in. But the second you get back to the hub world, you're reminded where you are as you're confined to that freaking cart!
If I wanted to play a creativity, toy, or racing game, there are plenty of other franchises to try this sort of thing with. Nuts and Bolts tries so hard to recapture the glory days while at the same time insulting it, and it tries to do something new that's just kind of meh both.
Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, well, that's a mouthful, is a faithful remake to the original Fire Emblem Gaiden, released back in 1992. And by faithful, I mean practically to a fault. Yeah, they brought in some new mechanics and touched up on the gameplay a bit, but the tactical gameplay in Echoes is a really far cry from what we're used to nowadays. There's no weapon triangle, you have to manage the stamina of your units, and dungeon crawling? I put a Fire Emblem game in here, right? But the worst of it is the lack of difficulty management, particularly in the level design. Some maps in this game aren't so bad, but in others, the odds are seriously stacked in the enemy's favor. Combined with the outdated Fire Emblem conventions, hello permadeath, I didn't miss you, it becomes tedious at best and infuriating at worst. I'm looking at you, Noibaba! I won't say that Fire Emblem Echoes is a horrible game, just already grossly outdated. But one thing it did right was presentation and story. With the remake came cutscenes, new conversations, a very well-written narrative, and voice acting, all of which were executed well, and nowhere is this truer than in the game's finale, Act 5, Together to the End.
And so no one yells at me, I'm gonna put this right here.
Spoilers.
Everything comes together in this final sequence. The fate of all Valentia, Duma's corruption, Alm's heroism, Celica's turmoil, Berkut's madness. Oh, Berkut's madness! Right when you start the chapter, the stakes are clear with Berkut losing his mind over Alm's rise to power and even betraying Renea, the woman who loved him more than anyone, sacrificing her to Duma so that he may gain the power to kill Alm and destroy the Deliverance. Seriously, take the time to listen to Ian Sinclair's performance as Berkut in this chapter. It is breathtaking.
Were you laughing along with them? Rudolph, Masena, and all the rest? Watching me toil away while you knew I would never become emperor? Was every kind word part of the act? Every smile an act of pity?
Adding to it, this act overall dials it back on the bullshit level design, the main challenge coming from the strength of the enemies and the long trudge through the dungeon. The only exception to this is the final confrontation against Duma, but honestly, you can cheese it using the healers and summoning an army of ghosts, just as long as you can keep them healthy. So yeah, Fire Emblem Echoes is a bit of a painful game to get through, but it's good to see that Saving Grace was a fun, dramatic, and satisfying conclusion. Good job, Echoes. You eventually did good. Not good enough to make me touch that DLC, though. Ain't nobody got time for that. Duke Nukem Forever. Never thought I'd touch this can of worms. I know it, you know it, everyone knows it. This game is complete garbage. Most of it's stemming from almost a decade of development hell. It's not even a scenario of it's so bad that it's good. It's just really, really bad.
Seriously, you start this game off in a urinal. That is a terrifying omen about this game's quality.
I'm personally not a fan of watching Duke Nukem doing the business, but upon leaving the bathroom, you realize that you and a bunch of other soldiers are backed into a corner, trying to fight off something. Before that, though, one of the soldiers asks about your plan of attack, which you convey using this whiteboard. This glorious, glorious whiteboard. Seriously, 75% of what makes this intro sequence great is this freaking whiteboard. You're pretty much free to draw whatever you want on this thing, and it amazes me just how creative or uncreative the community gets with it. And once you're done, the soldier watching you just goes with it.
Oh man, that is... I mean, I don't understand any of it, but I bet if I did, that guy over there would still have his arm. And at least one of his balls.
I hate the fact that I find that just a little bit funny.
But it's back to business after that, and the game takes you to a football field where you take on a giant alien, and it's actually kind of fun. I mean, it's easy, but I'd be lying if I said that bombarding this monstrosity with rockets wasn't at least somewhat satisfying. And once it's all said and done, you end off the intro by kicking the alien's eye to Kingdom Come.
It's good.
And then the game takes a complete nosedive when it's revealed you are playing a game within a game. From here on, it's nothing but crap, crap, and more crap. Seriously, the crap in the bathroom was more fun than this! Mega Man X7. Infamous for being the worst game in the X series, and considering that it was done without its practically done's consent, the game was doomed from the very beginning. I mean, gosh, this is just awful. The jump to 3D was sloppy, the story has no idea what it wants to be, the voice acting is atrocious, and the game overall is just boring. The drag grays don't make you sleepy, the monotonous and slow gameplay will. But even I'll admit, even this game has a little sparkle that, well, it's not terrible. The Deep Forest has you traveling through a lush jungle, and believe me, the green colors are very welcome compared to what we've been subjected to so far. What's more, this level is entirely on a 2D plane, meaning that you actually have to deal with what is ahead of you and behind you, unlike the Lava Factory. And the level overall doesn't pull any stupid tricks, unlike the Air Force's stage. This is also a stage that manages to be bearable no matter who you choose to go in with. X and Axel have hardly any notable issues with the Deep Forest, and while trekking through A-Zero is a little tougher, it isn't frustrating. And finally, there's the boss, Soldier Stone Kong, and compared to the other Mavericks, he's very underplayed and a more honorable type. Not terribly special, but in a slew of horrible bosses, being nothing to write home about is a good thing. I mean, look, you got absolute jokes like Tornado Tunyon, spamming nightmares like Snipe Anteater, and
Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground!
That?
But yeah, Stone Kong is an alright boss and he gives you a decent weapon to boot. So if anything, at least he's the king of a jungle that doesn't completely suck. And in Mega Man X7, that is a blessing.
Hello, 06, my old friend. I've come to rag on you again because your rushed production value left a hasty heckling venue, and the design of the game bordered on abuse. It's no use to play the sounds of Sonic.
By now, who doesn't know how broken the infamous 15th anniversary game is?
Yeah, Coast Guard, we got an unauthorized shipping off the starboard side. Shoot to sink authorization granted. Over.
That being said, there's a small light in the darkness. The Wave Ocean and Crysis City levels playing as Blaze the Cat. Out of all the playable characters, Blaze arguably has the most stable controls. Granted, that doesn't save us from the game's other glitches, but it's nice to not want to stick the game through a wood chipper for a little bit. The pacing for the levels is a lot quicker, and the maneuverability is a lot more impressive here. It's fun to just dance around in the air on wings of fireballs. If you had to force me to choose, I'd have to say Crysis City is a little more fun solely for the imagery and music, but they're about on par with each other otherwise. While I'm still a little averse to the broken canon imposed upon Blaze, it's nice to see a princess do something productive in this game.
I am a thing without value.
Hey guys, did you know I like Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Hearts is home to some of the most memorable boss battles in video games.
Traveling to new Disney worlds has always been a joy for this franchise.
As much as I praise the combat, visuals, and lighthearted tone, no pun intended,
And if you don't kill them in time, you lose, which is total bullshit!
Guess what? We're talking about it again. Cue the music!
I love this Square Disney team-up. But yeah, not every outing has struck gold. Dream Drop Distance had Nintendog Syndrome, 358 over 2 days had terrible music and some questionable design choices, Atlantica from KH2, and Chain of Memories. I actually like that card system, but I see why other people hate it. Aside from that last one though, Recoded seems to have gotten the worst rep. And for good reason. It's another retelling in a series that has told its first story to death. You'd think that they would either get it really right or stop trying.
Thank Hades for the Olympus Coliseum. Oh, so many conflicting emotions there.
I completely understand that the Colosseum and Kingdom Hearts games are not everyone's cup of tea. The story may be too minimal for others to enjoy, the halting gameplay maybe is a little frustrating, or you break your control in frustration at how difficult the challenges get. Well, hello there, Sephiroth! But the one Recoded is still pretty good because, well, there wasn't as much of a story for them to mess up. In fact, it's weirdly better paced than the rest of the game is, which is odd because it doesn't really need a pace, but whatever, I'll take it. Even better, they reverted back to Square Enix's roots and made this iteration a turn-based RPG style. I really like these stages for testing my skills and giving me more James Woods than I ever thought I'd need, and with the amount of polish Square put on this one, I find myself coming back to it.
I mean, on YouTube videos, because the game kind of sucks and I don't want to play it again. Hey, that counts for something!
Resident Evil 6 was a mixed bag. While some praised it for some aspects that are beyond me, there's a lot to be desired. Mainly the scares. Seriously, why are we adding a cover system, something for action games, to a horror game? And don't even get me started on a camera that should come with an airsick bag or the wonky controls, and especially the quick-time events that almost rival Telltale Games' later titles. There was, however, one refreshing bit of gameplay in Chapter 2. You find yourself in a dimly lit ice cave with mutant bugs on patrol. Your goal is simple: avoid getting caught, silently kill any pest you come across, and sneak your way out of the caverns. If you're unlucky enough to get spotted, be prepared to run and hide, or be quick to defend yourself because these bugs will try to take a bite out of you. But luckily, the game doesn't end right then and there for you. That's arguably one of the most infuriating parts about stealth missions. For certain titles, the minute you get discovered, the mission just ends right then and there, and you have to start all over from your last checkpoint, go through all that again, and feel frustrated with yourself because you have the subtlety of a monster truck on an Amish farm.
Sneaking music. Sneaking. Are you sure this is the right cave?
However, I'd like to compare this ice cave level to the Killer Croc level from Batman Arkham Asylum. The threat is very much real and you don't want to get caught, but it's not the end of the road as long as you're quick in evading and attacking. Granted, you can still die, but it takes the edge off knowing you can die on your own accord rather than just because Old Man Ustanak caught you out of bed after dark. Once again, a tragic case of great ideas, abysmal execution. Metroid Other MS suffered its fair share of boo-boos, from bad storytelling and characterization, to a rather limited first-person view mode, to that stupid authorization mechanic. Yeah, because nothing says good management like giving us all the bells and whistles, taking them away, and just leisurely authorizing them back when your little heart feels like it. Nope! Definitely don't need that very soon while I'm burning my biscuits in the middle of the pyrosphere!
Water! Water! Don't just stand there!
After trudging through a terrible, horrible, no good, really bad story, you get treated to a much less frustrating secret mission back on the bottle ship. Your mission is simple enough: explore the ship, collect any items you may have missed, and find a rather personal treasure. Along the way, you'll encounter several foes being controlled by an old friend of yours, Fantoon. Clearly unsatisfied with your last little spat, you'll have to once again go toe-to-toe with this monstrous bug before you can grab your prize and flee off the self-destructing ship. It's an incredible fight that tests any and every skill you've ever had to master in a 3D Metroid game, and compared to his first appearance, the alien ghost himself is downright terrifying. He's much bigger and much angrier, but so are you, so game on! One major luxury is that this level is completely disconnected from the game's main story, and yes, that is just as sad as it sounds. Since at this point, you're authorized to use power bombs so you can just explore the station at your leisure, and revel in the satisfaction of explosions. Glorious, beautiful explosions.
Explosivo is logo for boom boom!
There's even a twinge of contentment fighting an old foe, knowing he's the real final boss of this steaming pile of inadequacy. Sure, you have to swim your way through garbage, but at least you'll get the chance to go out on a high note. I've talked about the Uncharted series before, and I praised it for having an excellent story, excellent challenge, and varied combat. That all still holds up. For Uncharted 2 onward, the gameplay of the original Uncharted Drake's Fortune has not aged well. The combat demanded perfect headshots so you don't run out of ammo, so many encounters ended with you dying to a pincer maneuver, and just this one little thing of everything wrong with cover systems! There is one saving grace for this game, though, that remains excellent to this day. Nathan and Elena had to figure out how to keep an idol away from the mercenaries hunting for them, and they find themselves suddenly plopped into the plot of a different game. The idol turned both the Spanish explorers and the Kriegsmarine looking for it into zombie-like monsters, and any suspension of disbelief you had in this game gets shot in the face. Like the boring quick-time event laden hidden behind waves of annoying enemies final boss, come on! Your communication is shot, there's no cover to hide behind, and you're surrounded by the haunting ambient music and atmosphere until giant zombies pop out of corners to try and bum rush you. All that's missing is the icy vacuum of the final frontier looming all around you, and we be playing Dead Space. Yeah, I was actually feeling the heebie-jeebies from an Uncharted game. I kept recalling that familiar dread of turning down corridors that I loved from Dead Space. Going through this area, I couldn't believe how much fun I was having. The whole level, despite coming in out of left field, works incredibly well because it feels like it's lifted from a completely different, better game, which means Nathan Drake was quite fortunate.
I'm the Fiery Joker, and I have to wonder how good Assassin's Creed 3 could have been if they injected some random supernatural elements into it, like they did here. Oh wait, they did that and made it worse, never mind.
Cut!